to the Stick 'em Up podcast. Bruni, we got two more teams that we're going over here this week. We got the Utah, still unnamed, the Utah Hockey Club.
Nah, dude, the Utah Yeti. Come on, just say it. Just say it. It feels good. Just say it.
It has to be the Utah Yeti.
It has to be, man.
It's a great name. You know they'll get a great mascot. Like it just a
great logo.
Right.
Like it just fits.
Yeah.
Like if it's not Utah Yeti, I don't want the team. I don't want Utah because that's what I know them as. Like it's not even their team name, but like that's just what it is to me.
So many people already call them that.
Yeah, right? Like, and I would be shocked at this point now if they actually don't go with that, just because, like, that's already what a lot of people refer to them as.
And people like it. Like, it's getting positive reception.
Yeah, it's not like people are doing it to, like, you know, dunk on them or anything. Like, people are doing it because, like, this is a cool name. Like, this is what we want to see. So we're just going to keep beating it into them until eventually they're like, all right, we're going to go with the Utah Yeti. Why? Because it's sick. Because people want to see it. People want to hear that name. They want to see that logo. They want to see those jerseys, the mascot, like all of it. I'm going Utah Yeti. And if it's not, I don't care for the team.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at.
And like, I remember when the Vegas Golden Knights, when they entered the league, everyone was like, why are they the Golden Knights? Why aren't they just the Knights? Like, everyone thought that was really weird. And obviously, you know, they've, especially being in Vegas, they've done really good with their branding, you know. They have the gold helmets and they put on a entire show before the game.
Do you not know why they're why they're not just the Knights? I feel like I was the only person that clocked into it like immediately right away.
I want to say I've heard it before, but I've definitely forgotten at this point.
It's because of the London Knights. They own that name, being like the Knights.
I guess. Can you own that?
Yeah. You 100% fucking trademark a name for a sports team.
The London Knights.
Well, but that's also the thing. A thing as well, though, is like you want to kind of, especially if you're an expansion team as well, you want to try and create some more individual identity. Something to stand, like even just adding golden, just to stand out, even just a little bit more. Like just to kind of create your own personal identity for your team and not kind of be associated one way or another type of thing.
I guess. I don't think most people would have associated with them.
I would have. Because the London Knights are the sickest team. Like, they're the best team in the CHL. They're always in the playoffs. They always have a great team. Like, if you're going to pick a team to copy, like at least pick a shit team. Don't pick the team that's like the goated team of the entire CHL.
But they can be the GOAT and still 99% of people don't know who they are. Like, if there was an NFL expansion team and they called themselves the Rough Riders, there would be a very small minority.
That'd be sick.
They're copying the Saskatchewan Rough Riders. And everyone in the States would be going, okay, we're the first team to be the Rough Riders and we rule. Because most people just don't know, right?
But I don't know. If you're part of the
second the Vegas Knights exist, they're bigger than the London Knights.
I get your comparison, your concept, but I think it's vastly different because, again, people will say, oh, you know, the NCAA university program is pumping out great prospects. At the end of the day, CHL is still number one. It's still, whether you want to agree or disagree, it's number one. And it's not close right now. You can look up the stats. You can look at the top drafted prospects, whatnot. CHL is number one. And so if you're taking from the top, you know, league and whatnot that generates prospects, and you take, like, again, the number one team, like people are going to know. And if you don't know who the London Knights are,
some people know, but
you're a Vegas Golden Knights fan. You're a Vegas Golden Knights fan because you barely know hockey and you're just there for vibes. And that's okay. We understand. Like, it's allowed there. We're not dogging on you. It's okay, but
I think you also overestimate how many people know teams outside the NHL.
No, I'm just talking about Vegas fans, man. Just dunking on them.
I guess. That's always a good time.
But before we do jump into the Utah Yeti, 'cause that's what they are, the Yeti,
Of
and
course.
the Toronto Maple Leafs, we do have one bit of NHL news going around, and
Massive.
it comes from the New Jersey Devils, who earlier today they signed Nolan Foote to a 1-year deal. He was an RFA. They're re-signing him, and one could say New Jersey signed the right foot and left the other one out.
Should I clap?
Yeah,
Should I
fuck.
clap?
All right, I suck, but yeah, that's really the only news is New Jersey signed Nolan Foote, and I
Yep.
was shocked at the amount of hate this dude was getting
I was just gonna say,
online
I'm
because
glad that they resigned him.
people are like, dude, it's the wrong foot. Like, stop shitting on this guy. Like he's like obviously his brother is from what it sounds like right now kind of a fucking dweeb, but like people were dunking on this dude. I was like, holy shit, like guys, like this isn't the guy.
I was happy to see that they resigned him because I was worried that he was just going to get lumped in with his brother and it was just going to be a big,
Yeah,
oh, he's not good enough. We won't even take the risk on the guy who didn't even do anything. And so I'm glad
yeah,
he's getting his chance again with the Devils, and I hope it works out for him because he could definitely be a good player. He was always clearly the better of the
oh
better
yeah,
of the two, and his brother's a piece, but hey, he
yeah,
can. You know what? If he can play, uh, if Nolan can play, then he can play. So
yeah. I think it's kind of a
he shouldn't have
1-year
to pay for the sins.
prove it deal. And hey, you make the
Yeah,
team, you make some noise and make some magic happen. We'll keep you around. If not, hey, you know what? We tried, and kind of a go try and make a name somewhere else
yeah,
type of thing because it just isn't
yeah.
working here. And at
It's
this
so
point
low
now,
risk for
it's
them. Like,
100%. Yeah, like there's only value for the Devils if anything out of it.
yeah.
But the Toronto Maple Leafs, Utah Yeti, which side do you want to start with here?
Ugh. It doesn't matter to me. Do you have a preference, or should we? Do you want me to Google a coin flip?
You know
I
what?
can
Let's do
Google it.
that. Yeah, let's flip a coin today.
All right, call it.
Heads.
It's flipping.
Oh,
It's
it's so
flipping. It's tails.
all right. So you get your pick.
I'm
Is
gonna
that
assume
how it
that means
works?
no. I'm gonna assume that means I win, so I go first
Okay.
because
Okay. There we go. Yeah,
yeah,
because once I flip, I'm like, okay, shit. But like, what happens if one wins? Like,
yeah.
okay. So yeah. All right. We'll
It's like
start with Utah
it's like
Yeti.
that's like in Friends when Ross flips the coin and then all five of them watch it hit the ground and he just picks it up. Somebody call it this time.
To
Everyone
be
forgets
fair,
how it works.
to be fair, I haven't watched Friends all the way through. I've seen episodes, but I haven't watched it. But
I'd recommend it.
I know Ross is a piece of shit, so it sounds right. It
No, I'm
sounds it sounds
unironically,
accurate.
unironically, Ross was my favorite character for the final 2 or 3 seasons because by that point he's so broken down, he's just a menace to everyone he comes
You know
across.
what?
He's just a psycho and it's hilarious.
You get an old beaten down, weathered
He just doesn't
man.
care anymore.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah,
He's
you
like
can get some.
he's like 3 times divorced at that point. Like you couldn't pay him to give a shit.
He's just
It's just
clip worthy at that point.
he's, he's just living his life. But let's talk about the Utah soon-to-be Yeti. Uh, Last year they were the Arizona Coyotes, playing out of Mullet Arena. Uh, they where did they finish? So last year the Arizona Coyotes, they finished second last in the Central Division. 77 points, 32 or 36 wins, 41 losses, and 5 overtime losses. Um, Obviously not great, but they weren't expected to. They're going through a rebuild. They're starting to come out of it. They've got some good pieces, and in this last offseason, they bought pretty hard
Oh, did they
under
ever?
their new ownership and under all their new branding. So it'll be really interesting to see where they place this next year. We'll get to it at our prediction at the end for if we think they'll make the playoffs, but for now we'll see. We'll just go over some of their big contracts and stuff. Uh, Utah Hockey Club. So they got so for the next 3 years, they're missing one draft pick, and that's this year's seventh. Other than that, they've got an extra third, two extra seconds, an extra third next year, and then an extra fourth and an extra fifth. So they've got a lot of draft capital coming up. They don't have any extra firsts, but they've got a bunch of extra picks, and they've got just shy of $10 million in projected cap space this coming year. So they can take on contracts. They can be a third team in a retention deal. Like they've definitely got it set up to continue rebuilding for 1 or 2 more years before really trying to take that step. They also signed obviously quite a few young guys in this offseason. They signed Paul Beaudoin to a 3-year entry-level contract. Same with T. Jaginla. Same with Artem Duda. So it'll be interesting to see if any of them actually crack the lineup or if they're just going to be, in the system at this point. But do you have any strong feelings on the direction of this team as soon as this upcoming season?
In terms of strong feelings for the direction, no. What I will say is I really do like actually, kind of seeing a different process they're going through. I felt like whenever we were watching, the Coyotes, it was always like they were just going out and getting those those dead contracts and whatnot. Like they're going and getting Datsuk, they were getting Weber, Voracek, and it was all just to bring in more picks and prospects. And it was like, hey, you're just recycling the same shit. Like we want to see you start to actually put your money towards a competitive team. And, obviously now with the new owner and everything, and especially being, the first year of Utah Hockey Club, is as dumb as that name is, they went out and made moves to make the team better and draw attention to them and let people know, hey, we're not the Coyotes. We are our own different thing, and we are doing what we can to be a better team. And that goes into like the acquiring of Sergachev, the acquiring of Marino, the taking the big stab on getting a big player up front like T. Ginla, which the more I thought about it, I kind of had Utah pegged to maybe grab a defenseman. But then the more I started to think about it, I'm like, it's their first draft. It's going to be the first player they've drafted in franchise history. You're not grabbing a defenseman. You're going out there and you're grabbing a forward that you can label as your first draft pick and kind of mold and help, kind of lead them to be a star in your team, which is exactly what they did. And a guy like T. Ginla, who isn't going to play, but I like the process that they're going through of just being like, we're a better team now. We're not, just going to keep middling out and be like, oh, we're in this, this never-ending kind of rebuild, retool process that they were in. Like they're committed on going for it and actually putting out a very competitive team, which makes it much more exciting now to actually look at this team going forward.
Well, yeah, especially because like Arizona's been rebuilding for like a decade now. Have they ever what's the highest draft pick they got? Was it third overall?
Third.
Was Cooley was third overall or something like that? Like
as bad as they've been for how long they've been, they never got that first and they never got that second in all of these years.
Yeah, like they were never bottoming out, but they were never really good. I think they'll actually be good this year. Will they make the playoffs? That remains to be seen, but I like a lot of the stuff they did. Going back up until June, some of the moves they made, they re-signed Connor Ingram for 3 more years at a cap hit of 1.95 mil. They brought in Kevin Stenlund. They got Nick Bukestad for 2.1 mil for 2 years. Ian Cole at 3 mil for 1 year. They got Kerfoot back for 3.5 mil for 2 years. Like Travis Dermott's back. Like they made quite a few decent moves, as well as locking up a lot of their guys that they've actually had for a while as well. My freaking screen just refreshed. There we go.
And the thing is like when people talk about Utah, they really just kind of focus on their what happened at the draft, and obviously they made very good moves at the draft. They were one of the winners of the draft. But separating that from like the rest of their offseason, they had a very quietly good offseason, in my opinion. Like taking the draft aside, just being like focusing on who they re-signed and then who they went out and got. I think for where their team is at and what they're trying to do, I actually think they had a really good offseason. And I think it's slept on. I think a lot of people are sleeping on how good of an offseason they had and how they're very clearly trying to build their team.
Yeah.
So I like it for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Like they got a lot of those really good young guys coming up. Some of them are playing in the NHL, some aren't yet, but they got Clayton Keller locked up for 4 more years still. Lawson Krause for another 3. They got quite a few RFAs all expiring in the same 2 years. So those 2 off seasons are going to be very interesting to see what they do with those guys, who they keep, who they sign long term, who get bridge deals. Like in the next 2 years, we're going to see all these guys contracts expire, and they'll all be RFAs. Matthias Michelli, Barrett Hayton, Jack McBain, Logan Cooley, Josh Doan, Dylan Genther, Michael Kesselring, and Vladislav Kolyachonikov. I don't even think there's a V in there.
I don't think that's a real name.
Vladdy over in Utah.
There we go. Well, yeah, we'll go with that.
So they got Utah's a lot of guys, and those are all just the RFAs too. So like, they got a lot of decisions they can make on who to keep long term, and they've got like the bargaining rights, so they can kind of take a breather and not worry too much about it. As well as underratedly, one of the better goaltending tandems in the league that we'll talk about when we go through the. We'll talk about it a bit more when we go through the line.
We'll get into that at some point here. We'll try to keep that short and sweet, but no, I do like the look of their team, and I think they're kind of setting themselves up to have a certain window that they're trying to stay in. But again, when you have the amount of young guys that they have, like it's good because like, hey, you got a shit ton of young guys. Like this is going to be our core. This is what we're going to run with. But at the same time, it's like over time you have to keep paying them, and you have to pay them what they're worth. And you just don't want to run into a position where you're a good young team and you're on the cusp of really doing some damage, but then you can't afford a young player, which is why I kind of like that they're going through the process of like splitting up. Like they have their group right now of young guys, and then they've got another group of young guys. So you can kind of split up where like you can get the process done of paying your first guys and hopefully trying to get them on cheaper deals. So then if you have to overpay with your second group, you can actually get away with doing that because, you've got the money to work with. But if you really start overpaying this first group, like again, like you mentioned, like the Logan Cooleys, the Dylan Genthers, obviously a couple more guys that I'm forgetting off the top of my head. But if you overpay those guys, or not even overpay, but pay them a absurd high amount, you're already handcuffing yourself when it comes to your next group, and you're already trying to set a bar of like, this is like the top we can go, because if we go more than this, we're gonna have to lose some guys, and we don't want to have to lose some of these young guys. So I'm kind of interested to see how Utah goes about the process of dealing with these contracts, and when they bring certain guys into the fold with their team, when they feel comfortable that they can actually be ready to pay them and give them a fair deal to hold on to them, as opposed to potentially moving them, because we've seen that happen before with other teams.
Yeah, and they already have 2 main guys, in my opinion, that really set that bar for what you're allowed to ask for on your next contract. Clayton Keller is one, their big gun up front, making $7.15 million for the next 4 years. I don't think it's a hot take to say he's their best forward at bare minimum right now. So if the only guy I see likely getting more than him is Logan Cooley. But they also on the defense have Mikhail Sergachev now, who for the next 7 years is making $8.5 million. So
I
It's gonna
think
be
Logan Cooley sets the bar. Whatever Cooley
yes,
gets, I think that's the max of like that's how much. Like,
but
if
until
Cooley
that
keeps going the
happens,
way he's
I think
yeah,
it's Keller's.
but like if Cooley keeps going, the way he's going and he gets to where we think he's gonna get, he can command, you know, the most on the team, and that's fine.
Yeah,
But then you need like once you set that, like that's the maximum. And if you set that at, you know, 10 mil maybe, if he turns into a stud or just a bit under, like you can still get guys trying to sniff up around that range. Like you can't pay them more, but they can still get up within that. So a big part of it is trying to get Logan Cooley on like a team friendly deal.
yeah.
Like after
Especially,
next season, if you can find a way to get an 8x8
I was gonna say,
or
you
eight
they
by
can
eight point
extend him
five,
next season. So
yeah,
if they get him at 8, 8.5, or 9 for 8 or 7 years, now you've got now you've got Keller at 7.15. You've got Sergachev at 8.5, and then say you also have Cooley at 8.5 matching with Sergachev's. Uh, you can't ask for more than that, and that means
yeah,
you're
no,
getting everyone at less than that. Like you're going to get some bargains in there. So
yeah.
I think that would be great for them, and I think that's not unrealistic. Logan Cooley, we know
I
he's
don't
going to be
think
good,
so.
but he hasn't broken out crazy, and if he doesn't this
Well,
next year,
we're
they're
also
going
just
to want
talking
to
about
extend
after.
him long term.
I was gonna say we're only talking about him after 1 year, and admittedly on a pretty bad Coyotes team. So
Yeah, but
I'm
he's only
curious to
got one
see
more
now
year
with
until they can extend him. So
yeah, and
they're going to
so
want
I'm
to do it
curious now
sooner than later.
with yeah, and with the talent they've brought in, and obviously another
He's
year,
going to take a
a
step.
full year of development for him and some other young guys. Like I'm curious to see like what kind of damage he can do next year because yeah, obviously he's got 2 years left on his rookie, his ELC, but next year's kind of his deal to like be like, if you want to cash in and make some bank, like you got to do it next season. Because or Utah, the Yetis are
Big
looking
old
to
hockey
lock him
club.
up. Like they're looking to lock him up long term. So they're
Yeah.
hoping he has a season that's and ideally, let's be real. Utah, are they winning the cup? No. They're not even sniffing it. Can they make the playoffs? Maybe. If you're Utah, you're almost kind of hoping for, you know, maybe a 65 to 75 point season from Keller. You're almost kind of hoping for a bit of a down year from him so you can maybe lock him up on a better contract almost.
Oh, for Cooley, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, for Cooley. Yeah.
yeah. I
Do
would
I think
agree.
I think he probably gets over 80, to be fair.
You think he's
Um,
already at that?
I think so. I think he's going to show up next season. I think he's going to be so much better than people are expecting. Because what did he do last year? I'm just pulling it up here. He put up last year 44 points in 82 games,
Pretty good
and
for a rookie.
that was on a bad Coyotes team. I'm expecting him to take a big step, and I think with this new regime, new ownership, obviously completely new team and everything, the focus is going to be on winning, and I think he's going to be put in the best possible position to succeed. 80 points is a bit much. Actually, looking at what he did last year, I actually think
I think
that
that's a bit much, but I do think he takes a
six,
step and hits at 60,
65 to
65.
70. 65
Yeah,
to 75 is kind of in that range, I'm thinking, actually.
yeah. With that, we'll move to the line combination so we can talk about that a little more in context to the team. Because of course, we have the daily face-off line projections for next year. This takes into account all the off-season acquisitions and moves that they've made, but none of this that's just taking the current day roster and plugging it in. That's not whatever the coach has said. So this could definitely be changed, but I definitely find some of these placements interesting because this is not how I would have it drawn up. But with that being said, the first forward line, we got Clayton Keller on the left side, Nick Schmaltz on the right side, centered by Barrett Hayton.
I think they did roll with that line last year,
I think
if I'm
they
not
did too,
mistaken.
but They only would have been able to roll it for 33 games because that's how many games Barrett Hayton played last year.
Yeah, man. I was ready to see him have a breakout year, and injuries. The unfortunate reality of it, injuries
Yeah.
kind of plagued his season, and I just felt like we didn't get to see his full potential, and that's tough. When you got a guy that's on the cusp of having his breakout year finally, guy drafted 5th overall, and injuries, and now you're like, shit, So I'm curious to see what kind of season a guy like Barry Hayton has, because he was poised to break out, and now that he's fully healthy, it's like, now is this the time he does it, or did that kind of put him in an awkward position going forward?
Yeah, well, especially since he really didn't do it great in the games that he did play. 33 games, 3 goals, 7 assists for 10 points. So, what is that over a full season? 25 points? Something like that. If he was playing with Clayton Keller and over an entire season on pace for about 25 points, that's not incredibly promising.
Yeah.
He he might have been like, I don't know his situation, so he might have been playing many of those 33 games while partially injured and then got taken out, for all we know. But that the straight up numbers don't look fantastic. I definitely thought they would have him as the second line center, replaced by the guy they have on the second line. The second line being Lawson Krause on the left, Dylan Genther on the right, and Logan Cooley centering them. Obviously, last year it made sense not having him there, but I think this year, I think you just go for it right away. Clayton Keller on the left wing, Cooley center, and probably Schmaltz on the right wing, but whoever fits the best there, really. But I think you got to go Cooley and Keller on that first line.
I'm right there with you. I think you have to. Like, it makes the most sense for not only the development of Cooley and help him become a better, more impactful player, but also the success of the team.
It'll
You're gonna
just
have more
straight up help the team.
success running those two up front as opposed to having Hayton there. As much as I'm still high on Hayton, I think he can have a great year. I think you got to put Cooley there and let him and Keller, drive the bus for this team, and try to put the team in the best position as possible, and that's by winning games, and that's how you do it, by putting your best guys up front. So I don't know if that's how they'll do it, but I'm right there with you. I think that's exactly how they should go about it. Nasty top 6 nonetheless, though.
Yeah. Do you really know? I'm not incredibly familiar with this game. Do you know Clayton Keller's kind of play style? Like, is he a playmaker? Is he a shooter? Is he just kind of doing everything?
More playmaker. Like, he can obviously score goals, but I would kind of put him more of a playmaker. Yeah.
Okay, that's kind of what I thought.
Set up other guys.
That's kind of what I thought, but I wasn't too sure. Man, if T. Jaginla can turn out the way they want, and if he can make sure his shot is extra nasty, he's gonna have 2 real nice guys setting him up in Cooley and Keller in the future.
Yeah.
So I'd be working on my shot constantly all summer if I was him. One thing I will say though, as I'm looking more and more at this team, a lot of these guys that are all listed as centers, and we talked about this last week, in regards to who is it, Buffalo. A lot of their centers have pretty bad numbers for the face-off, like 46%. Nick Schmaltz, who took looks like about 400 face-offs for them last season, 41%. Looked 49% for Bukestad, who looks like he took like 1,200. 800 for Kerfoot, and he's a 47%. Cooley was a 38%, and it looks like he took about 650, 700. 38 is bad. Like, he's 19 and young, right? But you gotta teach this guy to do some face-offs.
Yeah. You got to put your guys in a better spot to win face-offs, because having numbers like that's
it's
just not good enough.
And they're clearly getting tossed out a lot too, because their wingers have a lot more face-offs taken than most teams' wingers do. Like Lawson Krause, poor guy's a left winger, 31% face-offs. He took 90 last year. Like Dylan Genther took 30 last year. He was at 20.7% because he's just a winger. Like he's just not supposed to be taking them.
Yeah.
Jack
Yeah.
McBain took almost
too many of their centermen getting kicked out of
45%. Like
yeah,
they're rough.
Yeah, that's
they're
something they
rough
got to
numbers across
adjust.
the board.
They got to work on that because you can't be. You're not going to be a great team or probably playoff team if you're losing that many face. Like if you don't have a guy that's realistically above 40% at faceoffs, out of all your guys, like you're in trouble, and that's going to be a tough position to be in and try and.
Do they have anyone over
pull yourself
50?
out of?
Like even a winger who took literally one.
I mean, you listed off a lot of their big
They have
guys.
One guy that's above 50, and that's Justin Kirkland. He's a left winger. He played 2 games. He won 8 face-offs and lost 4 in those 2 games.
He's a fucking beast.
Yeah, as a winger. He's not even supposed to be in there, but he was the only guy winning those 2 games, I suppose.
Hey, you know what? If that's what you need a winner. You need a guy that knows how to get it done.
Yeah.
Justin Kirkland's a guy.
This definitely does not mean much, but looking at their stats, it's kind of funny. Their goalies score. Karel Vejmelka had 2 assists last year, and Connor Ingram had 3 assists last year. Obviously, those aren't huge numbers,
in the work.
But like,
boys were putting in the work for the team.
Hell yeah. A lot of the young guys had really good seasons last year, though. And like the really young guys, not even the 23, 24 years old, but like Josh Doan, 21, 9 points in only 11 games. He honestly might be that right winger that ends up on that top line with Cooley and Keller as soon as this or next season, if they can really keep putting it together.
Yeah, I'm curious to see his development go. I mean, he's a beast. He's a dog. He's a lot of fun to watch from what we've been able to see so far.
The fans loved him in Arizona.
You need to see that next step from him before you think about elevating him up to to play with guys like Keller, Cooley, or Schmaltz. Like you need to see him take that next step.
I think you only need proof of it in a preseason or a training camp.
No.
9 points in 11 games?
No, not... Dude, in preseason and training camp, you play against a bunch of other teams fucking bums. Guys on...
Okay, so why can't...
tryout deals. Guys
so why can't the other guys on your team also take that spot, then? Everyone's getting the same playing field.
Yeah, but you don't just watch him just tear it up against AHL guys and be like, all right, he's immediately like, yeah, he's our first line guy.
If he's the only guy who looks good against AHL guys, but
he's not.
Dylan Genther doesn't look.
He's not gonna. Those are 2 different players. Genther's out there to score goals. Doan's out there to again be a kind of a playmaker. I think a little bit of a 2-way guy, if I'm not mistaken. But you can't base it just. No, Doan. Dylan Genther, I think he's kind of the goal scorer.
+6. I mean, he's one of the better plus minuses on the team. Most of them are minuses in the teens or -20 or something.
Okay, well, there you go. But you can't base it just off preseason. Like I kind of expect him to be a guy that probably starts. Honestly, probably second line actually, based on his play last year, and then he can maybe work his way up. But off just a preseason, I don't think you can just immediately throw him in and be like, hey, you're right up there, and
he's on equal footing.
all the pressure's on you to be a top line producer, because a lot of pressure is on Utah because they're obviously, planning on going for the playoffs, and well, maybe not go for the playoffs, but at least be a more competitive team and be a much better team than they were last year, especially after the moves they made. Yeah. And throwing in a guy like Doan, who's as young as he is, and be like, hey, you're having to carry the weight. Like if you're on the first line, you can't get by being a 40-point guy. Like you got to be dropping 55 plus minimum.
Yeah,
that's a lot of pressure to put on a guy, and based off just maybe a strong
you can't tell me he doesn't want that pressure. No, but
I think you got to let him
he's trying to crack
more.
The lineup. In my mind,
I literally said he was second line. I
No,
always
yeah,
said he was a lock for a second
nobody's
line.
second line, nobody's first line, nobody's nothing. This is Utah. They've never played a game in the NHL before. You take all the guys in preseason and camp, and you say who's the best hockey player, and from there you make the lineup. I don't think they need to look at past stuff too much. I think you got to look at the guys you have when they start practicing together in these blue jerseys, and you
No,
got to
you
say,
don't
let's make
completely
them.
rewrite it. You don't be like, "Hey, Clayton Keller, you're the same as fucking
So you
Liam
take Clayton Keller, and
O'Brien because we're
you
a
know,
new team." Like, you're
no,
not
but
doing that.
no, but then you watch him for 4 seconds and go, Keller's better, right? Like,
Yeah.
obviously, I'm saying the cream will rise to the top, and I think obviously Schmaltz, Keller, Michelli, those guys, they're all at least going to be bare minimum top six. Keller's definitely on the top line, and I think if they do all that, Josh Doan has a very good chance at being on that top line on the right wing because there's not a lot of competition.
Oh, you're
They've
putting him
got
as a
like
right winger.
they only have two guys listed as right wingers.
Oh, I'm thinking of him more still as a center.
Jeez, he's one of the only two right wingers they have that had
So
more than
I think
literally
they
one
want him
point.
to be more of a centerman.
They've got like everyone as a center. I don't think they need more centers. They've got one in their top
Who do
six
they have?
scorers. Five of them are centers.
Who?
Uh,
Cooley.
Keller, Schmaltz,
Keller's a
Bugstad,
winger.
Kerfoot, Cooley.
Well, Bukestad and Kerfoot, if they're playing the top six, fuck, Yeti is cooked.
I
They're
mean, I just
done.
listed the top six scorers. I'm not saying
Yeah.
they're top six guys, but like
The
just
the
like
centers I'm kind of looking at that I think they're gonna try to roll with is probably Cooley first line, Doan second line. Like I think that's kind of what you're hoping can be your 1-2 in the middle potentially. Maybe if you suck enough and you get another first round pick or something, maybe you try to upgrade your center and then you bump Doan to a wing and then you roll Cooley and X. But like
I
I like
I
Keller
kind of think
on the
they want
wing,
Doan to be a
Schmaltz on the
winger
wing, and
just because they have so many guys at center. Um,
yeah.
just to get it out there, we'll talk about the rest of the lineup here. They have Daily Faceoff has the third line as Matthias Michelli on the left wing, Josh Doan on the right, and Nick Bugstad centering them on the third line, and then the fourth line of Kerfoot on the wing, Stenland, and then centered by Jack McBain. Um, I could definitely see Cooley and Hayton being the centers of the top six next year, and then I don't see Josh Doan playing on the third line.
No,
I
I
could
see
definitely
him
see it
up in
at
the
the
top
start of the
six.
season if they want to, but I think he's got to get to that top six.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I'm right there with you. He's I think he's you got to give him a chance in the top six to play.
who do you bump out of the top six then? Obviously not Keller, not Cooley. And then they got Hayton, Schmaltz, Genther, and Lawson Krause.
I think Kraus maybe you just put him on the third line.
Kind of what I was thinking. It's
I think
it's one of
he's
those
good.
situations where he's just kind of the odd
I
man
like
out at this
Kraus,
point.
but yeah,
Yeah,
it's really what it comes down to. Just kind of odd man out, and you got to as good as Kraus could maybe be in the top six. If you're in a position for Utah where you're not winning the cup, so this year is about just trying to be competitive, but also grow your young guys. You got to put them in a position to succeed. And Doan is probably more valuable to the future of the team in long term than Kraus is
yeah,
in terms of their play style and what they
totally.
can actually contribute to the overall success of the team. So I think that's why you got to do it. I like Kraus. Put him on the third line. Maybe give him some power play time. Give him some penalty kill time, and he'll be chilling. He'll be fine. He'll still put up good numbers. And I think that's the way you got to do it. You can't hinder the growth of your younger guys to hold on to being like, oh, Kraus is this or that. Like he can still be this or that, just on the third line. Just
Yeah,
let him do it there.
and you could you could get a decent something back for Kraus if you really don't like the idea of him being in the bottom six and want to move him. Like he has absolutely no trade protection on his contract. 3 years at 4.3 mil. You could move that and get a decent return. I don't even
That's
think you'd have to
easily
retain.
movable.
You'd get more if you retain, but if you don't want to, I don't think you have to. So
Yeah, you don't even have you don't need to retain on that. Like
23 goals, 42 points last year. Played
there's a
81
playoff
games.
team that would pay to get him.
Yeah. the more I look at this team and I look at the lineups, they have so many guys listed at center, but you know what? I You can have certain guys play center once they're out there. They just, for the lineup's sake, you just got to put whoever's the best at faceoffs in center on some of those lines. Like these numbers are just abysmal in the dot. Like that's crazy. Like literally whoever's best at faceoff take it, and then if you really want Cooley playing center, the other guy takes the faceoff, drops back to the wing, and then Cooley sweeps in and goes after it. Like,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, they got some abysmal numbers, and looking at their team, like it's all center and defensemen. Like they've got 3 left wingers and 2 right wingers, and then the next wingers of either side had 2 points last year. 1 point, 1 point. Like they literally just don't have dedicated wingers. They've obviously all these centermen have I assume played sometime on the wing, but like they got a lot of centers, so they got a bit of a logjam there, and I believe quite a few of their young guys are also centers. T. Jaginla, Cole Bodoin, Aku Raddy. I'm trying to find some of those. Who are the 2 buddies that they drafted last year? I don't think they've signed them, but
Dmitry Simashev and Daniil Buit.
yeah, those boys. Were they? At least one of them was a defenseman, I think.
Yeah, Simashev was the D man.
Damn, they don't even.
I think they're both going into back to the KHL next year, as far as I know. As of right
they're
now,
not playing next year.
Like they got options
is
in
listed as a right winger / left winger, so he could be a winger on either side. That's not bad.
Okay, so I mean they got options coming up in the future, but like right now, with your forwards, you got to just put your young guys, your guys that are for sure part of your future. You got to put them in the best position to succeed. Because again, you're not trying to win a cup. If you make the playoffs, that's awesome. Like sweet, that's obviously what the goal is. But you need to make sure that you're helping your young guys take that next step and to become better players the following season when you're going to be in that spot where you can really start actually actively trying to be a consistent playoff team and try and make some noise in the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. And the more I'm looking at it, it's funny because people obviously have been rumoring it forever, but the rumors of Mitch Marner to Utah, he would be a right winger for their first line. Yeah, cool. He could play with Keller and Cooley. That's a lot of playmakers for the first line and nobody to bury it, right?
Yeah,
like,
I guess you need a guy to put
I guess
it
Clayton
in.
Keller just ends up being a 50-goal guy all of a sudden because somebody's got to shoot it. But that's a funny idea there. But yeah, this team's got a lot of potential, a lot of really good young guys, but they got some stuff to work out. And I think in 1 or 2 years they're gonna be a playoff team. Maybe not a lock, but like I think they'll be solidly a playoff team. Kind of where the LA Kings are right now, almost. Like
I think that's a fair spot.
Almost pencil them in as a playoff team, but you wouldn't. You might not put a bet down on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah, what are the defensive lines looking like for?
So obviously they don't have any. They don't have any Norris candidates at the moment, but honestly, their defense is looking a lot better than I thought it would. That first defensive pair looks like it's going to be Mikhail Sergachev and Sean Dursey. They don't got that like franchise number one, but Sergachev can be the number 1D on a
He can be a
core.
solid guy, yeah.
And when Sean Dursey's your number 2, that's not bad at all. Like, like Sergachev's definitely a top 20 defenseman in the league. Sean Dursey is top 30 crazy to say?
I'd have to do a little bit of digging and kind of like put together a list. I think 30 might be a bit high. I think you're probably more in between around 35 maybe.
Because obviously the Coyotes weren't great last year. He played 23 minutes ice time per night, He was only a -1 on a not good team with a lot of ice time. 41
Mhm.
points in 76
The
games.
thing is, like, I can think of, yeah, obviously when you take the best, the
Yeah.
top guys, you're like, oh, that's unanimous best defenseman. But then I can think of a lot of teams that I would say they have at least two or three guys over
Yeah.
Jersey. So I think I like Jersey. I'm a big fan
Okay.
of him. I'm a huge fan of him, but I think he's more in that 40 to 35 probably.
Fair
But
enough.
still, I mean, still great. Like
Yeah,
for
that's not bad for a second
for
D
for
man.
Utah, like from what they had before to now, if you got Jersey as your second defenseman and he's still within that range, like you're fine with that.
Yeah, and we've seen, especially I've definitely seen in the past, Mikhail Sergachev can quarterback a power play. Like there was the year where everyone thought Hedman was regressing. It's because Sergachev just got the first power play spot basically that entire season, and he kept that spot because he was so good at it. And so him on that number one power play with Cooley and Keller and Schmaltz and Doan, like that could be pretty solid. Like that might be up there for some of the best power play they've had in 10 years. Uh, but this second D pair, uh, they got Yuso Valimaki and John Marino. It's it really just screams second defensive pair. Like it's not great, not
Yeah.
bad. It's they're both top four defensemen.
Yeah, and that's exactly what what they want. I think that's totally fine for them.
Yeah. And honestly, in a very similar fashion, this third defensive pair screams, yeah, that's a third defensive pair. They're not bad. They're not good. They got Ian Cole and Michael Kesselring. At the very least,
That's not bad.
I don't think you have any questions that are you icing like all NHL caliber talent? Like they're all there. Like these are all guys that are solidly in the league. You're not having to play any guys too young or too early. You don't have any guys that are just not NHL caliber. Like they've filled out the roster with good depth.
Yeah, and I think that's a big part of what they were trying to do is add that little extra depth in there to kind of make their team a little bit more well rounded. Because again, like not win a Stanley Cup, but you're going for the playoffs. You're trying to be a more competitive team and give people a reason to cheer for you and actually care about your existence again.
Yeah. And I think they're gonna do really well in Utah. I think they're gonna have a passionate fan base there. I
Oh
do
yeah,
wonder if Coyotes fans are gonna follow them, or are they just gonna wait for a new team, or what they're doing. But
yeah.
fuck, that's so rough for Coyotes fans, man. Uh, um,
It's tough for them. It's not an easy spot for them to be in. Yeah, less than ideal.
and then for the goalies, we have Connor Ingram and Karel Vejmelka. Uh, I kind of love this tandem. I really like this. Like as far as tandems go, I think this is incredibly solid. We can't hold everyone to the standard of Jeremy Swayman and Linus Ullmark putting up 65 wins in a season.
Yeah, no.
But Connor Ingram and Karel Vejmelka are both very solid goalies. I think on quite a few teams, either of them could probably be the starter. Like,
Nah. Maybe Ingram Vamelka. I don't know. Like he already lost his job within a year of being the starter. I don't think
uh,
there's many teams I would say he's the starter on. Like actually, I don't know if there is a team I would say he's a solid like he'd be the starter. I don't think there's one team actually I'd say that for.
no, but like I'm thinking like if you took goalies out of the equation and plugged them into their situation, like how would they be? Like I think if you took Vamelka and put him on the Avalanche, I think they make the playoffs. I think they still have a chance to win the cup at that point. Like I don't think
I
he's
don't I don't I don't know, man. We haven't seen enough from him yet.
I don't know. He had a pretty
We've
good
got a
year
small
last
sample
two
size to
years
be
ago.
like all of
This
a
past year,
sudden.
38 games.
That's too small of a sample size to be like this is a goalie that could, you put him on a team and he can carry, like he can get them, like they can win a cup with him. I don't know. I would need to see more from him because I'm not a fan of, like, I liked his, when he first came in the league and whatnot, but the fact that the first year that he was kind of given the keys and being like, hey, this is, this is your show to run as long as you, hold up to it and earn it. And he couldn't even make it through, the first year. I'm like,
I think you're being a bit too hard on his year.
I'm not being hard on him, but it's like, you can't be like, oh, this is a guy that he can be a Stanley Cup winning goalie when we've seen like 38 games from him, 40. Like that's not enough sample size. Be like, that's a guy that can win a cup.
Last year, he played that many.
And what were his numbers last year?
Last year he played 38 games to Connor Ingram's 50, so he did lose the net a bit, but Ingram played a bit more and played better. Vejmelka ended the season with an .895 save percentage.
Yeah, well, fuck, Ingram he's not sniffing the playoffs. He ain't sniffing the playoffs, putting up numbers like that.
This ain't 2015 anymore, dude. This ain't 2015.
Yeah, but you're sitting there saying Vejmelka can be a Stanley Cup goalie.
He was .005 below league average last year.
He's not on the level that
on the Coyotes
that Vasilevsky's on, that Swayman's on.
No, I'm not saying he's an elite starter. I'm not saying he's an elite starter.
You cannot slot him on any team and be like, yeah, they can win the Stanley Cup with him in net.
I never said they were the favorite.
Don't buy it. No.
The Avalanche just won the cup with Georgiev. The Vegas Golden Knights won with Adin Hill.
You can't tell me Vejmelka's better than Georgiev, because at least Georgiev, we've seen it.
I think Vejmelka,
we've got no proof. There's no proof. That's like being like fucking Calvin Pickard on Edmonton. Oh, we've seen flashes from him. He was decent, in the 2 games for Edmonton, the playoffs. Put him on Colorado. They could win a cup with him. No. Like, that's just, I like Vejmelka, but I need to see more from him. I need to see more than just an .895 in the regular season on the Coyotes to be like, he could be the guy.
So over the last 3 years, he has 140 NHL games played, and over that time, he has averaged an .899. So
yeah,
he's not.
That's not a guy that I would put in the net and be like, yeah, we can win a cup with him in that.
He is so very slightly below league average, it's almost negligible. And he's also on the Coyotes. Also, the Coyotes been slowly getting better. The last 2-3 years of Coyotes, he was on some bad teams there.
Playoffs is so different from regular season, though. Like, you can't just be like, oh, an .899 in the regular season, like, that's fine for the playoffs. Like, no. You can't get away with numbers like that in the playoffs. And the thing is, and that's the unfortunate part, right? Is I can't give him a full evaluation because I haven't seen him in the playoffs at all. So, like, I can't say, he's a terrible goalie in the playoffs, or I can't say he's a great goalie. He's a guy to carry you. He's him in the playoffs. I would need to see him in the playoffs before I could say whether he's, a guy capable of that. Is the potential there? Sure. Do we know it's there? No, because he's been on a shit team and we've seen absolutely nothing from him. But I would need to see at least some kind of playoff resume from him before I could establish whether or not, he's or at least him take the starting job back and go crazy next regular season to then be like, okay, this could be a guy.
Yeah. Which, to be fair, I don't think he's going to take the starting role back. Not that I don't believe in him, but Connor Ingram's been very good over the past year. 50 games played, a .907 on a just straight up bad Coyotes team. This dude got 6 shutouts on the Coyotes last year. This dude got 6 shutouts last year.
Yeah.
Like, no wonder
he came out of nowhere. He just came out of nowhere and just stole that.
He was a waiver.
I'm curious to see
last year, wasn't he?
I'm curious to see if he repeat it, or does he kind of take a step back? Like, I'm curious for both these goalies on what they can do with this Utah team that, again, I think should be better than what we got last year.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think that it's very difficult to say where they could go because they did move a lot of pieces. They brought in a lot of guys. They moved out guys. They brought in Sergachev, but they moved out Moser, and they signed all these guys. It's a whole. I mean, they're going to be playing in an arena that's never had NHL action in it. But then again, they were doing that last year, so like there's so many weird
Exactly,
things
right?
going on. It's really hard to predict. It's one of the hardest teams to predict where they'll end up.
Yeah. Yeah, they're kind of in between tweener where I think they're going to be competing for a wild card spot, and then kind of going into our last couple segments here for Utah. Spoiler: I don't think they make the playoffs, but I think they kind of fall just a bit short. I think they give it a
That's
good
kind of what I'm
run, but
thinking.
I think they're just on the outside this year.
Yeah, kind of assuming that the playoff cutoff point is around that 96, 97, 98 point range, which is what it
Yeah.
was in the West last year. In the East, it was 90, 91 points. I think they probably end up, around high 80s. I think they're in the hunt until that last 6 games, and then they kind of fall out.
Yeah, I think that's kind of right around where I put them, and I'm
They got
comfortable
enough
with
guys,
them
they
in
could
that
catch some
spot.
magic. I think
Yeah,
they definitely have a shot, but my
and that's the
prediction would
thing,
be
right?
they're
Is
a
like,
bit out.
yeah, my prediction is they kind of just miss out, but like they are a team that, yeah, they could be like a Nashville last year, and they could just go on a great run. And like I don't view this team as worse as a worse team than what Nashville had last year, if not maybe better. It's probably better. And if Nashville could go on a run like that, like there's nothing stopping Utah from going on an incredible run like that. Maybe not the same amount of wins or something, but still an incredible run. And that could be the difference of why they're in the playoffs as opposed to someone else. So,
Yeah.
but the last thing for Utah, as we always do, one player, individual award. Who you got?
One player for an individual award. I guess it's kind of important for this team, but do they have any eligible players for the Calder, for the Rookie of the Year award?
None.
Like Doan and Cooley
Not really.
aren't eligible. So if they
Yeah, they
are, it
really
would be
don't have
players we don't
anyone.
know are going to be on the roster yet.
Yeah, like it'd be basically an Aginla if he played, but I don't think he's playing this year. So
Probably not. So there's not a ton of ways to go with it, but I'm gonna go with what I think is the most likely. I would say Mikhail Sergachev winning the Norris Trophy. I I don't really see many Art Ross Rocket options. I think it's between Sergachev winning the Norris and maybe one other one that's about equally as likely, but uh, in case that's your pick, I don't want to say it. So what is yours?
uh, I'm gonna go with a bit of a rogue one here because I think it's very possible if he puts the tools together and has a good season. I am going to go with Connor Ingram with the Vezina.
Yeah, yeah, and that was the other one. It really was one of those two. Like I was trying to think, like I don't even know I don't even think they have a guy who could probably win the Selkie, especially with face-off numbers like they have. Like, yeah, I think
Yeah,
I think those
I
are
am
about
right
the
there
only
with you.
two options that I could at least be able to conceivably predict before the season.
Yeah, yeah, I'm right there with you. I think those are kind of the most likely if we had to pick some. But again, hey, you know what? You never know. And with this Utah team, you never quite know what to expect.
Yeah, who
Um,
knows? Maybe someone will win the Marc Messier Leadership Award.
yeah, that award's a fucking joke.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, we know.
does that wrap up everything we have for the Yeti, Utah,
Uh, yeah, pretty
the
much.
Utah unofficial Yeti?
The only other thing, and this isn't actually really about Utah. I guess we're kind of moving on from that, but just to go back to the goalie thing for a second, how many regular season, say they don't play any playoff games, about how many regular season games does it take before you would consider a goalie like where we kind of know like they can consistently play at this level now?
I would need to see 55 games from Elka. If we're gonna start throwing him in there, being like, yeah, you could slot him on a team
So
and they
you
could
mean
win a cup
in
with
a
him, like
season? In a
yeah,
season then? Okay.
like he needs to go out there and be the guy in there for 55 games, and not by just, well, I mean, I guess it could be by an injury to the other goalie, but even if in 55 games, like it needs to be decent numbers.
Yeah.
Like it can't be you play 55 games and oh, you have, you know,
Oh,
35 wins, but you've got a 3.1 goals against
yeah.
and a you know an 8.24 save percentage type thing. Like it's got to be actual decent numbers and actually contributing and helping the team win, not just by the team outscoring
Yeah.
shaky goaltending,
Winning
i.e. the
despite you
Oilers,
being out there.
basically.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
yeah.
That one, that's not even to do with Vamelka anymore. I was just curious on your thoughts on that. So you would say it's more based on like games played in a single season, like putting together one really good season versus like, several seasons playing 35 games and having decent numbers.
Exactly, right? Because there's a huge
Okay.
difference between being the guy versus being the backup guy.
Yeah.
I would like to see it on a consistent basis because again, playoffs. It's when you saw a team like um well, kind of pretty much Dallas. Like they went through a long stretch where it was just immediate, like you're just playing every second night, and it was for like multiple weeks on end, and you got a little bit of a break, but it was like and you need a goalie that again can handle that, basically every second day just going nonstop over and over, and still being able to provide decent stats and not getting you know burnt out or worn out or just starting to get lit up, like being a guy you can rely on. So
Yeah.
that's kind of where I'm at
That makes sense.
for that, at least.
I was curious on that because I remember after which year was it? 21-22 season when everyone was saying Igor Shesterkin's the best goalie in the league now. And by the end of that season, over his 3 seasons in the NHL, he had, what is that? I think that's 90 games even over those 3 seasons. And there was people saying he was the best goalie in the league, and I was like, he's played really well, and he won the Vezina that year, but like, 90 games.
Yeah, that's why I was like, okay, we got to kind of pump the brakes and like wait a bit. And obviously, everyone's, belief in that he was the top guy. Yeah, sure, kind of looked out to be true, but in the time, it was like we got to wait a bit.
Yeah. And now we know, he regressed after that insane season, but like he regressed back to his average, which is fucking like 916, 920. Like he's still easily a top 10 goalie, like a lock. Most people would have him in the top 5. So like,
yeah.
But the when somebody comes in and puts in an incredible 20 game stretch, and then it's like, oh, this guy's top of the league, and it's like, okay.
Yeah.
Like if a guy comes in and is scoring at a rate of 3 or 4 points per game in those 20 games, I will hear you out. But they've got to be like world beating numbers for that small of a sample size.
Exactly, right? And that's kind of where I'm sitting on that debate there.
Yeah. But that is all we got for the Utah Hockey Club currently. Hopefully soon to be the Utah Yeti. But you got the Toronto Maple Leafs now, and I'm very excited to hear what you got to say about these guys.
Yeah, so Toronto Maple Leafs, obviously not as much to talk about because kind of a lot of the same main pieces at least are intact. Kind of really the only major departures from the team. I don't really count, the Mark Giordano's, the TJ Brody's, like those aren't major pieces at this point now for them. Really the only major pieces is losing Tyler Bertuzzi to Chicago and then Samsonov. I don't even really count that because kind of a mid goalie going to
He was their starter last year
Vegas.
for stretches, though.
That really doesn't mean much on
No, but
Toronto.
he
Real
he
like
played starting
decent,
goalie
but
for them. Like
yeah, yeah. Like
it
I'm not
changes
saying
their
he's
outlook.
bad,
I
but
don't think it necessarily makes them a lot worse, especially because
I
they
don't
got
think so
Wool.
now
But
because yeah, and that's the thing. That's why I'm like losing Samsonov isn't super massive because I think
no,
Wool was
but it's
already the
still
better
great.
goalie. So it's like you're sure you lose, who was your starting goalie, but you got a younger, better replacement, and
Yeah,
the biggest thing, a guy who can stay healthy, or at least as we know right now, knock on wood, can stay healthy, right?
yeah,
Um, but re-signing a couple of their key guys that they wanted to re-sign. Max Domi signing a 4-year deal, 3.75 AAV. That's a great deal for both sides. Domi wanted to stay in Toronto, and obviously Toronto really wanted to keep him. So that's a perfect deal for both sides. And then Timothy Liljegren, a little bit of an overpay because I don't think we've seen him get to this level where he deserves this yet. But a 2-year deal at 3 million AAV, I don't. I don't hate it. I don't love it. I don't think he's worth that amount yet, but he's a guy that could definitely easily build his way into being worth that. And then it looks like a good deal.
yeah,
So you just kind of got to play that one out and just wait to see how it shakes out for that one.
yeah. And especially because I think they obviously a large the biggest hole in their team really is that defense, I think. And uh you know, is Liljegren exactly worth 3 mil a year? Probably not, a little bit less, but I think he's worth it if you can't afford to lose him, because who's gonna fill that spot if you don't have him? So
Yeah.
I think it's one of those situations where they just kind of had to suck it up and overpay him, which, especially in Toronto of all places, hurts when, obviously cap implications we'll talk about at some point. But yeah, it's just one of those ones where they had to bite the bullet, and it's not that much of an overpay if it is. So
Exactly. And looking at the rest of the signings, for once, Toronto went against what their motto is. They actually looked at defense and goalies. They didn't just be like, oh, forwards, like that's all we care about, that's all we need. Like they actually finally did something to address something else outside their forwards, because again, whether you want to admit it or not, that's all Toronto cared about for the longest time. Yanni Hakanpää, they bring him in. That's a solid depth add. uh Obviously re-signing Wool, 3-year deal, 3.66 AV. That's a great deal. Obviously, that's going to be their starter, or at least the guy that they're hoping can be their starter. If not, they did bring in a reliable backup, recent Stanley Cup champion Anthony Stolars. 2-year deal, 2.5 AAV. And if Stolars is lonely, he wasn't for long, because Oliver Ekman-Larsson is also coming over from Florida, signing a 4-year deal at 3.5 AAV. And then obviously the biggest one, the one that I said was the biggest needle mover for Toronto and will provide the most impact in all areas for them, in terms of their position and what they do, is Chris Tanev, 6-year deal, 4.5 AV.
a long
They
contract.
they got two solid goalies there. Well, yeah, I would say solid. I wouldn't say elite or anything yet. The potential is there, but two very solid goalies there, and they added to their defense. They got a little bit of nice defensive depth, and they added a top 4 defenseman for them. And Oliver Ekman-Larsson, I'm gonna say probably. I mean, fuck, they're paying him like a top 4 almost at 3.5 for 4 years. So I'm curious to see where he plays. Maybe third pairing defense, but second power play unit or something. But regardless, I do like these moves for Toronto. They keep Domi up front, and then they say, all right, let's put a little bit of faith in some young guys up front, and let's kind of round out our goaltending and defense, which has been their biggest struggle since kind of developing their what they call the core 4 there, which I call the poor 4 because they're shit. They can't win. But I don't know. I don't mind it for Toronto and what they've done to try and improve their team at least.
Yeah, I actually like quite a few of the moves they made. underratedly, I think Stolarz is a great pickup. Like, I know a lot of people are like, yeah, he was a pretty good backup. Last year in 27 games, and obviously he was playing for the eventual cup winners, the Panthers. But he had a 925 last year in 27 games. That's insanely solid for a backup goaltender who is probably your backup this year on this new team. But yeah, if Wool gets injured, if he's just not playing right, Stolarz definitely looks like a guy who could take the net if he needs to. And at 30 years old, it's not like you're signing a 38-year-old backup who's, can just play the games. Like, if he steals that net, he could be your goalie for 5 years.
Yeah, I completely agree. And looking back at Toronto season last year, the over under on their point totals was set at 101 or 105 and a half. If you hit the under, you got it right. 102 points, 46 wins, 26 losses, and then 10 overtime shootout losses. That was good for third in the Atlantic. Obviously, we know they did go out round one to Boston, but 303 goals for. That's second best in the league, but 263 goals against. That is 19th in the league. So obviously, that's the story. We know what Toronto is. A team that can put the puck in the net, but not the greatest at keeping it out. But I do expect that to kind of shift a bit for them with the addition of Craig Berube. Not going to dive much into Berube. We've already covered that before. If you want to listen more to that, you can find it on one of our previous episodes. I think it's straight up right in the title. I think we've got it right there.
I think it is.
So easy to find there, but we did dive in a bit more, and we are both kind of on the same page that Berube is going to be a good addition to this team and can help kind of ignite a spark in this team and maybe kind of shift the mindset of a lot of these guys and make the team more well-rounded. So maybe you're not, second in the league in goals for, maybe you're six, but in goals against, you're not going to be 19th. Maybe you're up to like 9 or 8 or 10 in that range. Like, you're sacrificing the goals you score, but you're becoming a better defensive team. And maybe it's a bit boring, but that's how you win games. And being a more well-rounded team is how you win.
Yeah, and I genuinely think they don't have to sacrifice that much goal scoring to do that. Like, they're still
right.
They're still gonna have Matthews and Marner and Nylander and Tavares, and they're gonna have all that. Sure, they lost Bertuzzi, but two solid goaltenders, one that could potentially break out and be, an elite starter for you that you have signed this year and extended for 3 more in Joseph Wool. But like, that defensive core looks better than I've ever seen it in my time of watching hockey for the Leafs. And, Marner plays a good defensive game. Matthews was getting Selke consideration last year. Like, they've even got some good defensive guys up front on top of this kind of revamped D-line. Like, they could be a defensive powerhouse. Like, honestly, the way this team is built doesn't look incredibly dissimilar to the Florida Panthers. Like, they've got pretty good defensive forwards. Their D-core looks good. Depth isn't near as much of an issue. Like, at times last year, it was, oh God, one guy went out or he played bad and he's scratched. Who are we playing? Connor Timmins or Ben Danford? And it's like, what? Like, who are you talking about? Or not Ben
the only
Danford,
difference,
I guess Topi Niemela, but
the only difference I would say between Toronto and Florida is obviously Florida is a lot more tougher and stronger, whereas Toronto is quite a bit more softer, and that's really what hurts them a lot throughout points, is kind of just being a soft team. But hey, you know what? But if it's Craig Berube as your coach, you got to imagine there's going to be a bit more toughness throughout the team going into next year. So
I do think that, I don't think that narrative's entirely wrong, but I do think it's a lot overblown. If you look at their numbers and watch them, a lot of their guys, they're running around, they're like laying hits. They're not like in the bottom end of the league for hits,
but I'm more so talking about like
blocked.
Kind of in the top end. Like we know the story with Florida's bottom six. Like It's just to go out there and just hit and be good defensively and, obviously pot the occasional goals here. And I think Toronto's bottom six can be very effective in that sense. But I'm more so looking at the top, like Marner and Nylander aren't, and even Tavares, like they're not going out there and being on the level that like a dog on a bone, like Reinhardt was, like Kachuk is, like Verhaeghe, like kind of that, like in the top six, like for your top guys, like I like more of the physicality and just the relentlessness of what Florida's players had rather than Toronto's top guys.
Yeah. And
but obviously Toronto's guys, obviously more skill.
Yeah.
And
honestly,
the goal
I don't
scoring
think
is
you
more
need
there.
to be like, I think you just need guys to get on the level of a guy like Verhaeghe. Verhaeghe's not crushing people. He's not beating the shit out of anybody in the corner.
But he has no fear.
But he's not shying away. Exactly.
He has no fear, and that's what Toronto has a problem.
Him and another guy are flying in. Verhaeghe's not backing off because he's afraid of it. Like, you don't need all your stars to be like Kachuk going out there dropping gloves or laying big hits. You just need them to not be afraid.
You seem to have to be willing to do whatever it takes to win.
Yeah.
And again, I like Marner, I like Nylander, but when it comes to the playoffs, you don't see that from them. They get kind of scared, and it's like you need the guys that are just being like, you know what, I'll take a banged up shoulder, I'll take a hard hit and just, be feeling a bit sore the next day. But you know what, if we won the game, all worth it. Whatever it takes to win. I just want to see that from Toronto.
Yeah, and they've gotten better.
It's gotten better. I will agree.
By the playoffs this year, hopefully it's at the point where it can be like another team like that can be successful in playoffs, because Nylander, especially this past year, I think took a step forward. There were still some moments for sure in the playoffs, but he looked better than he did last year in the playoffs. Mitch Marner, he still shies away from a decent amount of it, but still, that's come a long way from multiple delay of game penalties in the playoffs because somebody might hit him. He literally just NHL 24 flinging it over the glass because somebody might hit him. Like what?
Exactly,
like you
right?
Can't have that. So
no,
at least they seemingly passed that point.
Yeah,
Marner's the biggest worry there, but who knows how long he's going to be around. I would say the rest of the season, but I don't think he gets extended there.
Yeah, it's an interesting situation. And we'll kind of dive into it a bit while we go through the lines. Obviously, we can kind of rip through these a bit quicker because as opposed to Utah, these ones are a bit more on the same page of
these are more similar
exactly what we saw last year. First line, pretty much, I think the exact same thing is what we saw. Matthew Knies and Mitch Marner with Austin Matthews. I think that's a good first line. Potentially, there's rumors going around, which is why I don't want to dive into it too much and actually dissect it. I want to wait till it's official. But a lot of the rumors are pointing that John Tavares is going to be stripped of his captaincy, and the seat is going to be given to Austin Matthews going into next season. I don't want to do a full breakdown of everything because I'd rather wait till we actually know if it's official.
It's speculation.
But if it does happen, and again, it does sound like it is legit, like it's probably going to happen, I think it's a great move. I think, what Tavares has done has been awesome, but eventually, you just got to be like, you know what, shit hasn't been working. Matthews is the future of this team, and we need to make a change. And this is the perfect time to do. You've got Tree Living. He's 1 year into his job now. You got a new head coach in Berube.
New head coach.
You haven't had Tavares has been there for 6 years. You've made it past the first round once, and then you just got bitch slapped in the second round. Eventually, you just got to make the decision and be like, Matthews is our guy moving forward.
Yeah, and we all knew it because and it has nothing to do with Tavares. It's more that Matthews has multiple 60-goal seasons. He's won a Hart Trophy. He's just that guy. And he's willing to be the captain. It's more about Matthews being the future than anything with John Tavares. I could even just read the tweet that got everyone talking about this earlier today. This was from Darren Dreger on Twitter. Expect the Toronto Maple Leafs to name Austin Matthews captain on Wednesday. This is part of the evolution of Matthews as a leader, and current Maple Leafs captain John Tavares fully supports the change. Tavares has been heavily involved in the process with GM Brad Treliving. So it sounds like pretty soon after Game 7 against the Bruins, they started talking about it, and yeah, it sounds like Tavares would, they were really asking, we need you to be okay with this, because it kind of, like, nobody said it anywhere here, but it does kind of sound like they want to bring him back. Obviously not at the same, 11 million that he's making now, but if they can get his number down enough, I think they'd want to keep Tavares around.
Yeah. I'm right there with you. Like, again, kind of sucks for Tavares and everything he's done, but eventually you got to make the move. And that leads right into the second line. John Tavares centering William Nylander and Bobby McMahon.
That's really nice.
I
Those
like
are
Tavares
really
and
nice.
Nylander. I get you can sit there and keep pumping the tires on McMahon, but I would like to see maybe someone a little bit better in there. Like, I get he can be serviceable there, but I'd like to see someone maybe a bit more high end. But it's not terrible. Like, if you've got a second line that's got Tavares and Nylander, if that's what they roll with, you're gonna be fine. You can put whoever with them and be okay. But
It's one of those things. It's almost like what we were talking about before. Like, it's really just games played is the thing.
yeah,
Because we don't know if Bobby McMahon can replicate what he did last season. Because if he plays the way he did last season, he will fit in with them on that second
oh yeah,
line.
it'll
Like,
be just fine.
he honestly would, if he plays the same as last year all this season, he probably won't have a stat line incredibly different from Tavares, other than power play points. Like, he was really good for the time he did play. Obviously, he was playing with Matthews for quite a while, but like, it'll be interesting to see if he can replicate that this upcoming season, especially if they actually put him in that top 6 again. Because
Yeah, if he actually
he really just came out of
slots in
nowhere
there.
and went right up there.
Yeah, and and he earned it. Like, it's by no means is he a bad player, and I'm curious to see if he can actually keep, hold on to that spot that he's earned, or if if it was just like kind of one of those things where it's like, yeah, kind of one good half year and then kind of back down to earth, or maybe this is where he belongs, and he's going to fit in just fine, and maybe get a good pick from Toronto. But looking at the third line, Pontus Holmberg and Calle Yarncroke, centered by Max Domi. I actually like that third line.
That's
I
real
think that's very
nice.
good for them. There's a lot of good things to like with that line, I think.
Holmberg's a pretty decent bottom 6 forward. Domi and Yarncroke, I think, could be in the top 6 of a lot of teams. I think that's a very good third line.
Yeah, I got no complaints with that one, and I don't think anyone should. And then the fourth line, I'm okay with this for the most part. I think there's guys that's going to come in and out of the lineup, but Connor Dewar, David Camp, Ryan Reeves. I'm okay with this. I think I see a lot of Toronto fans that obviously, being Toronto fans, already believe that, Easton Cowan's going to come in and just be an immediate stud. Fraser Minton, like, again, you got to realize they're regular prospects. Just because they play on Toronto does not mean they're all of a sudden like elite and they're above everyone else. They're regular prospects. You need to take your time with them and let them develop as they should. And I don't think either one of them benefits from just being thrusted into this team and having so much expected out of them. Just let them continue to develop. And when they come in, they're going to be much better players for it. And they will provide more value to the Leafs as well by doing it that way.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. The only thing I would say is, or not even on that, because I do agree with that, especially with Easton Cowan and the like. I don't think any of them. They might play a couple games because they like doing that, but I don't think any of them are mainstays. But I don't see Ryan Reeves playing most of the games there. I think
No, I don't either.
Because there's one guy who is currently without a contract. He's an RFA, and they have not much cap space. But if they can make
He's
room for
gone.
Nick Robertson,
He's gone. I think he wants out, man. They just he's just tired. He doesn't want to be a fourth line in and out of the lineup type guy here and there. Like he wants to be given a chance to play.
I
And at
mean,
22 now,
prove you're better than Ryan Reeves every night. Like
and he does
take the spot.
I think the thing is he is a bit of a smaller forward, but again, like most teams don't want a a shifty playmaking style guy on their fourth line. They want a bit more of a two-way guy, a bit of a bigger body. Like he's not meant to be a fourth liner. So sure, he could beat out Ryan Reeves, but like he's not a fourth liner. He doesn't provide value on your fourth line.
But I don't think he can crack anybody's top six.
No, but he could at least get the chance to go somewhere else and maybe be a third liner and try and work his way up, maybe. Like there's teams that are bad enough where I think he could at least go and try and make a case. But with Toronto, I mean, it's just eventually I think you just need to realize like it's kind of a thing like a Philip Zadina, right? Like where he was getting the opportunity where he could maybe start to get in the top six with Detroit, but he was like, you know what? It's just not working here. I need a fresh start. I need to go somewhere else and at least try to prove that I can be something more. And with some players, that's just the way it is. Like, and it doesn't work somewhere, but somewhere else it could be great.
I guess it's crazy to me that a guy who his whole thing is I'm talented and I can score, and he's a left winger. He can't make it in Toronto of all places because the top four being the top two centers and right wingers for them is Matthews, Marner, Nylander, Tavares. Nobody's cracking that, but he's a left winger, and who's on the top two lines on left side? Matthew Nyes and Bobby McMann.
Yeah,
like Bobby McMann got that spot literally last season. The left wingers are Nyes, McMann, Pontus Holmberg, and Connor Dewar. The whole left side is wide open. Like he's just got to prove that he can hang. Like if he can't beat Bobby McMann as a scoring forward,
we're not acting like we shouldn't be acting like Robertson can't get it done. He's not good enough. Like last year, he put up 27 points in 56 games. Like,
but then why wasn't he playing at least on the second line on the left wing? Like I feel like
I don't know where he was fully playing last year.
Yeah,
but from what I've heard, it kind of sounds like it's just like first of all, eventually Toronto, just can't afford him unless he's willing to take another 800,000 and he's fine never getting paid, because if he's in Toronto, he's never going to get paid. Like with what they've got, it's just so I guess it comes down to that for him is, does he just want to stick with Toronto, or does he want to try and get it, try and become a staple for another team and then maybe actually get paid? Right now I don't know if Toronto can even afford to re-sign him where he's at.
Yeah. If I were him, I would try and sign 1 year to stay there. I would do my damnedest to break into that top six and get to play with those elite level guys that are all making 10 mil plus, and then churn out a 50, 60 point season and then take that and get paid somewhere else.
Which is a very realistic possibility. Like we could definitely see that from Robertson. But with the defense, kind of brushed through this quickly. A lot of it's pretty standard. We've already kind of talked about some of these guys and what they bring to the team. Morgan Rielly and Chris Tanev. I mean, putting Chris Tanev on that top pair makes it so much better than anyone else that Morgan Rielly has been with. Whether or not Tanev plays up there,
like
or they, right. Like
it's a perfect match fit for the way both of them play. Morgan Rielly loves jumping up there. He needs a guy to ground him. There's very few guys in the league who can do that better than Chris Tanev. And he can also chip in a bit offensively.
About fucking time you're on the Chris Tanev train. You're finally on it.
I've been on the Chris Tanev
train.
Dude,
you literally said...
You treated him like he was a Norris caliber.
Nah, man. Because you said like 5 episodes ago that you would take... Or you thought that Ilya Lyubushkin was on the same level as Chris Tanev. Yeah, hearing that back now, you're like, fuck, I said that. which is bad because
No,
that
I'm
is
just trying to
so
think of what Ilya
fucking
Lyubushkin
wrong.
has done.
Nothing. He's big. He's a big tower on defense
I'm
that
starting to think I confused Lyubushkin with
but
another guy.
below average skating. And I honestly I do think you did because when you said I was like, there's
Did,
no fucking way you believe that
yeah,
those two were even
he's not on
comparable.
Vancouver. Who's the guy that they sent to Vancouver? He's probably also
Luke
Russian, and I'm
Shen?
confusing it. No,
Uh,
I'm gonna look through Leafs team stats from the last few years and see if I can find it.
a defenseman they sent to Vancouver?
I think so. He might have been a forward, honestly.
Yeah, I can't think of a
I swear they had a
defenseman
guy
that
they sent there.
Travis Dermott? Because Toronto
No,
did send to Vancouver, but he's not even
no.
near like Chris Tanev.
Let's go.
While you keep looking at that,
Yeah.
second pair, Oliver Ekman-Larsson, Timothy Liljegren. I don't like that. I think that's too much, focusing on scoring goals and not enough actually being a defenseman. I don't expect that to be a pair because I just probably actually a really fun pair to watch. Watching those two play together, but in terms of actually being a solid defensive pair, probably hurts a little bit more than it helps.
Yeah, it's not great, but it's it's serviceable. I think this is their defense is probably where they go for a pickup at the deadline, and they try and maybe
Yeah,
get a third, fourth defenseman that pushes one of those guys down, and now you've got, player X with Liljegren and Lawsome Tossum and Jake McCabe on the third pair or something like that.
yeah.
Also, the
What?
guy I was thinking of was Ilya Mikheyev.
Oh, yeah, forward. So
Yeah, he's a forward.
fucking bum. And then the third pair, you already mentioned one of the guys, Jake McCabe, on the right side was Simone Benoit. That's actually a really good third pair. Um, I like that for a third pair more actually than I like Ekman Larson and Liljegren for a second pair, just because that's actually a really strong, solid, 1-2 on that third pairing. Whereas again, that second pair I think is going to be a lot more focused on the offense than the
It's a little
defense.
it's a little scary. Like Toronto
Yeah,
fans, they are no stranger to having a couple of defensemen where they tense up every time this guy touches the ice. And now you got two of those guys kind of playing on a line together in Liljegren and Oliver Ekman-Larsson. So it's
yeah,
I don't see that lineup either happening or staying together through an entire season. Even if you
yeah,
have to swap a McCabe and Liljegren, and then you can even play that second and third with relatively close ice time, but just split those two up because they're both good at what they do. But uh, between Riley, Ekman Larson, and Liljegren, you've got three defensemen there who kind of need to not play together because then they start becoming defensive liabilities.
yeah, exactly. And then kind of the extras that could potentially slot in here and there on defense. We already touched on one that they signed Yanni Hakanpää, as well as Connor Timmins, who's still with the team. And then the goalies, we already talked about them. Joseph Woll, Anthony Stolars, Woll still being on that kind of ELC, but he does have that 3-year extension now. So I expect him to get the chance to be the starter at least for this year. And then if it doesn't go well, you go to Stolars. But right now it's kind of Joseph's Woll, kind of his crease to lose right now.
Yeah, and I I hope he can stay healthy for an extended amount of time because I really do think in 1 or 2 years he could be a top 10 goalie in the league. I think he has the potential to be really good, but he's got to put it together, and obviously he's got to be able to withstand that pressure that Toronto puts out more than any other team in the league. There's
Yeah,
just so much pressure in that market that
especially being in a
he's
tough
got to be able to
Atlantic
stand up to it.
division. Yeah.
There's a reason they've gone through so many goalies that played well elsewhere, and so few of them are getting those same results in Toronto. Goaltenders, it's a lot more of a mental game than other positions, and
Yeah.
it's hardest to play in Toronto.
Yeah. But that kind of wraps through everything with Toronto through this offseason. Well, the big one, the big question, is Toronto a playoff team? Do they make the playoffs next season? What do you think?
In our hot takes video, one of my hot takes was Toronto Maple Leafs missed the playoffs this year.
You're sticking with it?
I would still call them a playoff team. I think if you're being a smart person and you're trying to guess,
Sorry, you kind of cut
you
out
have
there.
oh sorry. If you're a smart person and you have to guess, you have to guess that Toronto's gonna be a playoff team. But they've all been damn near a lock for several years. I don't know if that's the case anymore. I'm still gonna say they are a playoff team, but they've got a couple of teams in the Atlantic that are knocking on the door now. But
Yeah.
there's a lot of teams
I
in the
think
Metro that are getting worse. So
yeah.
maybe I do think it might be a 5-3 split in favor of Atlantic this year. And even if Toronto gets in that fifth spot, you're in the playoffs.
Yeah, exactly right. I'm right there with you. I think they do make it. I don't think it's going to be as easy for them because again, I don't think that the improvements they made are like drastic, like to the point to like, you know, put them over some other teams. And at the same time, there are other teams in their division that, missed the playoffs, but I think became a lot better. So,
yeah.
And then the fun one here, especially with Toronto, one player, individual hardware form. Who you got?
Well, I want to go different from you, and I know you're going to say Chris Tanev for Hart, so.
You would be correct. You would be correct.
Honestly, John Tavares for the Mark Messier Award is very possible, but that's a goofy ass award, and I'm not going to guess that.
Yeah. The leadership board after getting stripped of his captaincy. Come on.
Well, yeah, it's like
Come on.
He's not getting stripped. Stop saying he's getting stripped. He's gifting it to Matthews. He is.
No, you're getting stripped. If
no,
you're losing it, you're stripped.
It's a passing of the torch. Everyone knows that it's a passing of the torch.
But that's the same thing when it's like, oh, look at this GM. It was coach is basically either you step down or we fire you. So it's like with Tavares, it's either like you can either be like, hey, yeah, I'm passing it on to Matthews, or it's like we're stripping you of it. Take your pick. You either take the door of being like, hey, I'm passing it down, or it's like you pick, we're stripping. Because either way, everyone knew he was kind of losing it. Like Tavares wasn't the one that came in and said, hey, I'm ready to give it to Matthews.
No, but they asked him and he said, yeah. I don't think they said, do it or you're gone.
Well, because once a team comes to their captain and says, and brings that up, what's happening. Like they don't bring that up to you and be like, hey, quick hypothetical. We're thinking about giving Matthews the C. Are you okay with, passing it down to him? Like you don't throw a hypothetical like that at your captain. If you're doing that, it's because it's like, hey, this is what we're doing. Do you want to be on board with being like, yeah, you're passing it down to him, or do you want it to be like a Joe Thornton in San Jose, where it's like Joe Thornton was stripped of the C type of thing? That's the way I view it. Like no player comes up and says, hey, you know what? I'm ready to just give up the C and pass it over to someone else. Like, especially when Tavares was brought in and given the C, and that's his hometown team, whatnot. Like,
yeah, and he knows that Toronto lives and breathes Austin Matthews, number 34. He's the franchise. He's getting Selke votes. He's won multiple Rockets. He's won the Hart Trophy. He is Toronto Maple Leafs hockey.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean Tavares is walking in and being like, I'm giving it up. Like,
no, we already know, as long as the reports are to be believed by Darren Dreger, as soon as Game 7 ended, like within a week, they approached Tavares and said, "Hey, at some point, we want to give Matthews the captaincy. What do you think?" And I I imagine that he said,
I don't
"I've
believe
been
that's how it went
expecting this
down,
for
though.
seasons," and yeah, he's the guy. It sounds like
I,
Matthews
I
is
don't.
already great in the locker room. Like Tavares
Well,
isn't a
we know
vindictive guy
Tavares.
going,
We know Matthews is a stud in the locker room. Like we've known this for
yeah,
years.
and that's why I think Tavares is okay with it. He knows he's still going to be respected in every locker room. He's always going to be a captain to the guys in there. He's definitely going to have an A on his jersey still. Like,
But that's like such a just a slap in the face to lose your C, but be like, oh, but we'll give you an A to make you feel
well, no, because he's
included
still a
and
part
part
of
of
no,
our
because he's still
club.
no,
Like
that's baby shit. You're thinking
you
way too deep
can't.
into it, man.
No,
He's
you
how could he
can't.
not? How could he not have an A?
That's the same as
He's
where
one
you
of the
talked
leaders of the
about a
team.
head coach
He's in the
willing to step
leadership.
down
He's
and
in
be an
the
assistant.
leadership group.
But
You're
that's the
telling
same
me
when you
he's never
talked
going to talk
about.
to the refs? You're telling me he's
No,
never going to
no, that's not
give a
what I'm
speech to the
saying.
boys?
But that's the same as how you're like, I think a head coach would be okay stepping down and being an assistant coach for a bigger coach to come in. Like, no.
No. First of all, I was saying if you had the chance to bring it in, the GM and ownership group would want that. I don't know how good the head coach would be with it. Also, I think that's way different because that's your job title, not captain. And also, Tavares is known for 4 or 5 years that Matthews will be the captain at some point here relatively soon. Like there's no way he's shocked when they said we want to give 34 the C. There's no way he was shocked by that, right? Like we've been talking about this for years.
Well, no, but again, I don't think it's a thing of like once it's brought to Tavares, it's not. Do you want it like they're trying to make it seem like he's the good guy, but again, all my thing that I'm trying to push and say is it's not Tavares is like, okay, let's do this. Toronto is going to him and telling him this is how it's going. You can make the pick. Like it's not like they're going to Tavares and being like, hey, again, because then you're right where you were at the Islanders, where Tavares basically grabbed the team by the nuts and said, what I say goes. I'm choosing when we practice. I'm choosing when we do this. The coach isn't choosing, it's me. I'm the center of the universe in Long Island.
I don't know where you're hearing all these guys saying that stuff.
Oh, dude, oh no, you go look. That's all the reports out of New York. That's when they were in a shit show, and that's when it was like the coaches were going to Tavares because he was just so deadlocked on running it. They were like, are we practicing today? Like, is this what we're doing? And he was like, yeah, we'll run a practice today, or no, we're going to take the day off.
Okay, maybe get a coach with any ball sack and have him set up a schedule.
Well, and that's where we're at now with Toronto, and that's where Craig Berube is like,
but you're not with Toronto
you're done
because your guy.
You either step down or we strip you. That's what it is.
They're no all way friends. I don't know why you think it's so adversarial.
I'm not.
John Tavares
obviously
is
they're
great friends with Matthews. I think he's got a great relationship with the front office. Obviously, Craig Berube's new, but I don't think that's his call. I think it's more with the GM. I think they said, John, you've been a phenomenal captain, the best we've had since Matt Sundin, and it's not close. But we want to give it to a guy who just scored 69 goals, a season removed from winning the Hart. And he goes, yeah, I figured,
but that's the thing. You put him in a corner.
Let's do it.
What's he gonna say? Be like, no, fuck you. I'm keeping the C.
Because
you can't take it away from me.
He's in a
like,
corner,
of course
but I don't think he hates that. He's not a caged animal. He's going, yeah, Matthews deserves it. Matthews a freaking G.
So there you go. You're on the same page as me. Finally, that's what I'm saying. It's not Tavares' decision.
But he doesn't want it to be his decision because the writing's been on the wall and he's fine with it because he's giving one of his best friends.
But I'm saying it's a clever way of basically saying he's getting stripped of the C. Like obviously it's getting passed on to Matthews, yes, but in the sense it's Tavares is still technically getting stripped.
I don't.
They're taking it away from him and passing it. It's the same as how
he's passing it to Matthews. I think we are saying the same thing, but the way you're saying it sounds like he's
San Jose.
He's a
People
failure as a
Marleau
captain.
got stripped. Thornton got stripped. Okay, then just look at it. No, they're just passing it on. They were never stripped. They were great captains. It's like, no, Unfortunately, I love the two of them. They got stripped.
It depends how it goes down.
You can, yeah, and that's the thing. You can put it whichever way you want, but at the end of the day, if you're staying on the same team and you lose a C, you got stripped. Are we saying Blake
No.
Wheeler didn't get stripped of the C?
I think Blake
No,
Wheeler
he
got stripped.
100%
I think
did.
Vinny LeCavalier got stripped. The coach didn't like the way he was doing shit, and he said, nope, Andrew Chuck's the new captain. I don't like how your tone, and he stripped him. But
Yeah.
if a guy's been
Which
captain
I
for a long
agree.
time, and he's sticking around, and they go, hey, this is what we're doing, and the guy goes, yep, I'll give him the captaincy because he is clearly the future of the sport. I don't think that's being stripped of it. I think that they're going, we'd like to do this. Please do this. We don't want it to be difficult. And he goes, don't worry. I'm not going to make it difficult because he is a good captain. And a
But
good
he
captain
also
would
doesn't have
do
a
it for the
choice,
future.
is what I'm saying. He doesn't have a say in the matter.
But he doesn't need a choice because he knows the right choice is to go along with it.
Exactly. Which is that's what I've been saying the whole time.
Knows it's selfish to not do it. And
I've been saying that the whole time. You're on the same page as me. We're together now.
yeah.
You're literally.
But
that's what I've been saying.
We're saying the same thing, but you're saying it as it's toxic, and I'm saying it as
no. I'm not
John
saying
Tavares
it's toxic.
Is fine with this.
I'm saying, I'm not saying it's toxic. The only thing I'm saying is we can't sit there and be like, good guy Tavares, he's stepping down to give it to Matthews. No.
I think we can say that.
He is getting stripped and he's passing it down to Matthews type of thing. Like, it's not like he's just falling on the sword being like, I can't do it. It's Matthews' team now. It's everyone knows it's Matthews' team and it's his time. And so Tavares is passing it down to him, but it's the same as he's getting stripped of it.
But
because
it's not the same.
The results aren't there.
Tavares going along with it is him passing the torch. If he says, no, I'm the captain, I can do this. I know I can win for us.
Either way.
Yes. And if he loses it that way, he has been stripped of the captaincy.
And that's what I'm saying.
He said,
like, Toronto's doing it a
don't
good
take
way.
it. And they said, sorry, and they take it from him. If he
and
says,
that's like Toronto's
fine.
going about it in a good way. Whereas, like, again, I talked about San Jose. It was just straight up stripped from Thornton or Marlowe. Winnipeg, stripped from Wheeler. Same with Tampa. Toronto's at least doing it to save face for Tavares a bit.
Yeah.
Like, it's still a strip, but it's at least to make him look better.
And I think that's what makes the difference.
Exactly.
Because Tavares is going quietly, and I think that's
exactly that's what I'm saying.
For the franchise, and it's good for him. Like,
that's what I'm saying. But you're saying, like, no, he's not getting stripped. He's willingly,
because he's willingly
stepping up and being like, I'm passing it down. It's
no,
he didn't
it's
step.
No. That was half right. He is willingly doing it. He's not stepping up and doing it. They came to him first, but he is willingly doing it.
Okay. All right, we're finally on the same page with this.
Our wordage is slightly different, but we are saying generally the same thing.
Yes. Okay. We finally, long road, but we did get here. Did we even fucking talk about who's winning what award? I don't think we even got.
Yeah. We both said John Tavares is winning the Marc Messier award.
Oh yeah. All right. Well, that's what I'm going with.
I'm gonna go with
if
Bobby McMahon is gonna win the Conn Smythe. No,
I'm just gonna pump Toronto fans up and be like Easton Cowan, Calder. I'll tell you right now, he doesn't even sniff a Calder vote ever. Actually, no, he plays in Toronto. Of course, he fucking does.
You're too
to actually
low on
pick
him.
One.
You've gone the opposite direction.
No, I'm not low on him.
They're too high on him. They're definitely too high on him. But in response
I think he's going to be
a
very solid player. But like people being like, his first year, he's going to be a.
Yeah.
Again, like look when they talked about Matthew Nyes, and I said the same thing. I said they pump their prospects up and act like they're like
because
top
it's
prospects
the loudest fan base because they have the most fans.
Yeah, like Easton Cowan, he's going to be a solid, I would say, 50-55 guy in the league per year.
Yeah.
And I think that's fair, but Toronto fans are like,
too.
He's a point per game guy. Unless it's like, I don't see it. If he does, that's awesome. That'd be great.
If he's playing
but
with Nylander and Matthews, I could see him being a point per game guy. But in his rookie year, obviously not.
Yeah.
But I would love to come up with something smart, but
I don't think there is.
No, some teams there's an obvious answer, and for this team, it's Austin Matthews winning the Rocket Richard. You could also say the Lindsay. You could say the Hart.
You could
You
also
could
say
even say
Chris
this.
Tanev
You could even
Norris.
say the
Like,
Selke, but
there's
Matthews winning
lots.
the Rocket is definitely the safest bet for this team.
Yeah, and that's where I'm at. I'm the same way. I think that's what you got to go. Like, so again, like you said,
some teams are fun for us to say different stuff. Sometimes there's kind of just a right answer.
Yeah, exactly right, and I think that's
Dude scores.
the right answer. But that wraps up everything.
26 years old.
Yeah,
dude's still young.
That wraps up everything for Utah, the Yetis, and Toronto, the Maple Leafs. One last thing before we get out of here. It is that time, your favorite time, where we pick who we are doing next episode. Braden, I will give you the first pick on next episode.
I was not prepared for this.
That will be here
just
on
like
Friday.
I wasn't ever prepared for them. But
you get one pick. Don't mess it up.
I get one pick. If you had one pick,
you got one
opportunity. Would you capture?
You're taking your talents from Utah to where?
I am going to take them, and I am going to stay out in the West, and I am going to talk about the Anaheim Ducks.
Oh, boo! Boring team. No, that's actually. Well, there's a lot to talk about that team.
Yeah,
I do like the rebuild.
They're a little bit boring right now, but that could end very quick. You know what? Actually, they're not even that boring, because even then they've got guys like Zegras going out there and doing shit. Like,
yeah, and so with my pick, just because I can, just to fire you up just a little bit more, just to really piss you off.
Oh, come on.
We talked about the guy who's getting his C stripped, ripped off his jersey, slapped on another guy. We are talking about John Tavares, and we are going to talk about the team next episode that he abandoned. We are going over to New York. We are doing the New York Islanders.
And you called my
another kind of orange team. Hey, we're two orange teams. We're not. No. Boring. We'd be talking about if Barry Trotz was still.
No, yeah,
still
they're
coaching.
Not anymore. They were for a bit there, and you know what? You can call them boring. It was effective hockey. That's just defensive hockey. Like,
yeah,
it got him places. So
yeah, people said, "Oh fuck, I love Nashville. They're fun last year." Basically, the same thing the Islanders were.
Yeah, I mean, sure, if you're only watching the highlights, right?
Yeah, so. Next episode, it will be the Anaheim Ducks, the New York Islanders. You have that to look forward to on Friday. Once again, we do hope you guys really enjoyed this fucking long episode of the Stick 'em Up podcast. A really long one, but you know what? Again, we knew it was going to happen when we're talking about, again, the newest franchise in the NHL and probably the biggest franchise in the NHL in the Maple Leafs. We do hope you guys really enjoyed this one. If you do want to join in on any of the conversations, you can do so on any of our socials. It is Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, SEU Hockey. Come swing by, come say hi, come talk about hockey with us. And again, let us know what team you want to talk about, and they will be the very next team we talk about.
We'll do it.
You could pick the what was it? The Greenville Swamp Rabbits? Is that team? And we talked about them. The Bloomington Bisons, the best logo in hockey. We would talk about them.
Well, you've clearly never seen the Orlando Solar Bears.
Nah, man, the Bloomington Bison sweeps them.
Dude, they're like blue and bright orange with a polar bear with sunglasses. The ECHL is so fun.
It's so fun. Dude, what the Bloomington Bisons, it's a bison with a hockey stick and a top hat?
I was going to say, is that one the top hat? Okay, that one is really good.
Like that, dude, that's the coolest logo of all time.
Yeah. And
yeah, it's a bison with a top hat, gloves, and a hockey stick. That's nasty.
He's a unit.
It's nasty.
Also, if you're gonna go check us out on any of our socials, let us know who you thought was right about the John Tavares thing. Do you think Do you think he's being stripped of the captaincy, or is he passing the torch, or is it both? Were we both right, just saying it slightly differently? Like, to me, that
I'll put up a post.
It has a decent like difference in meaning. I'm sure there's plenty of people that think it's literally the same thing. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'll
let us
put a
know your
post
thoughts
up
on that.
there and we'll get your guys' opinion. Check it out on any of the socials. And again, let us know your opinion. And if we get enough responses, we will actually do a little bit of a review at the beginning of next episode because I think that segment took up probably a good 15 minutes in itself right there. So we'll review the
Yeah.
footage from you guys and we'll do a review. Yeah, that's all there is to it.
Hell yeah.
But we do thank all of you guys for tuning in. Really hope you guys enjoyed. We just hit the 2 hour mark from the time we started recording. So
Oh,
a fat one here. Hope you guys enjoyed your snacks during it, your drinks.
a
If
beast.
you're on the road, drive safe. And we'll see you guys next week. Well, later this week. Close
Later
enough.
this week.
Later this week.